Howdy readers, I'm Jason. This is Chapter and Verse. I am co-hosting Shaketube this year, as I did last year with Lukas from Totally Pretentious and Steve Donoghue. We are each going to be reading different Shakespeare plays for the first 3 weeks of the month. And then at the end of the month, all three of us together are going to be reading The Two Gentlemen of Verona. I invite you and they invite you to read along with whichever plays you're most inclined. So my first video is on Twelfth Night, and the edition I read is this new Royal Shakespeare Company edition with the yellow stockings. I'm not sure why they're not cross-gartered, but they're not. But I thought this was a really fun cover. And it's a very slim little thing, and it's a cool edition. I had never seen these before. I found it on Book Depository, and they have RSC editions of almost all, if not all, of Shakespeare's plays. And it just has some cool little things in it. So, for instance, ahead of the cast list, at the beginning, it says major parts with percentages of lines, number of speeches, and scenes on stage. So, for instance, Sir Toby Belch has 13% of the lines in the play. Viola has 13% of the lines in the play, and so on and so forth. And I just thought that was super interesting. I first read Twelfth Night about 20 years ago when I was in college. I took 2 or 3 Shakespeare classes as an undergrad. I also saw it at that time performed at the Colorado Shakespeare Festival in Boulder. And that was marvelous. I went to a number of Shakespeare plays in Boulder during those years. Twelfth Night, The Taming of the Shrew. I want to say I saw Henry IV Part 1, I think, as well during those years. But those trips down to Boulder, Colorado for those Shakespeare plays is the subject for a whole nother video. And if I ever get around to making that video, you guys will hear the story of the biggest raccoon who has ever walked the face of the earth. So, I have always been charmed by Twelfth Night, even though I had only read it once going into this reread, and that a very long time ago, like I said. But I've also seen Trevor Nunn's film of it many times, starring Imogen Stubbs and Ben Kingsley. Richard E. Grant plays Sir Andrew. And that's just a marvelous movie. It's one of my favorite Shakespeare adaptations. What struck me most on this reread of the play, forgive me for referring to my notes here once in a while, was the extent to which, for a play in which dissembling is all over the place, whether it's in costume or in letter form, right, with Mariah impersonating the hand of Olivia in the letter that she writes to fool Malvolio. So for a play in which disguises like this play just a major part, I was really struck by the fact that this is a play that seems to me about the wonder and beauty of truly seeing someone, of seeing into the core of a person, and marveling at and loving what we find there. And the flip side to that, of course, means that this is also a play about being seen. So not just seeing into the core of someone else, but being seen, allowing ourselves to be recognized, and to be adored, to be cherished, and to love as a response to that, to love in response to that. And I just find that beautiful, actually. So back when I was an undergrad, when I was taking all of those Shakespeare courses, my professor's name was Duncan Harris, and I learned more about Shakespeare from Duncan Harris than I have ever learned about it from anyone, right? And that includes like Stephen Greenblatt and every scholar I've ever read on the Bard. Duncan Harris died earlier this year. I had not been in contact with him since graduating in 2001, I guess it was. But I was really saddened to hear the news of his passing. I'm not sure if it was cancer or what have you. I think it was cancer. But But that stung a little bit, that this man who just broadened my horizons, and showed me why it wasn't hyperbole to look at the work of this writer and say, yes, that's the pinnacle, right? That's the peak, and here's why. Yeah, he was my mentor where Shakespeare was concerned. So I'm kind of dedicating this year's Shaketube to him, I suppose, in some way. But way back when, in one of his classes, we had read Romeo and Juliet, and I remember getting into, and it wasn't just me, but the class really getting into a very heated argument, a heated debate on the subject of love at first sight and whether or not that was possible. And I believed it was, and I still believe it is. Most of the class were not of my view. Surprise, surprise. Jason had a dissenting opinion. But this play, Twelfth Night, I think goes some distance further than Romeo and Juliet, I suppose, in showing us why love at first sight, or love at first encounter, maybe is a better way to put it, is possible, okay? So I would argue that a person can truly recognize the truth, the deep truth, in another human being in an instant, just like that, okay? And love what they find, and love what they see, and have their lives just be completely changed moving forward. I believe that that's possible. We could think of just a romantic, kind of overblown, melodramatic movie situation. Say where maybe someone trips over a curb and is helped to their feet by a passerby. And not just a passerby who then continues passing by, but stops to make sure they're okay, right? Sees that the person who has fallen is rattled. Invites them to the cafe that's just, 20 feet away to sit down, right? To catch their breath, collect themselves, buy them a coffee. And then they talk for 5 minutes, right? And the person who has helped the one who has fallen down up, has revealed himself or herself to be someone who really cares about people and wants to make sure they're fine, wants to make sure they're going to be okay before he or she moves on. And there's something so noble about that and so chivalrous about that, but also just so frank and so real, and just refreshing about that. That such behavior, I think, could lead to the person who has fallen to loving that person who has helped them. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. Call me crazy, call me a romantic, right, with a capital R, I don't know. But I think we see instances of this in Twelfth Night. So in Act 1, Scene 4, right, Orsino recognizes the woman within Cesario, right? He doesn't know that Cesario is Viola and that Cesario is actually a woman. But he recognizes her. He doesn't know that he has, but he has somehow. And it is this that leads Viola as Cesario to fall in love with Orsino. In a moment, really. Orsino says, "Dear lad, believe it, for they shall yet belie thy happy years that say thou art a man. Diana's lip is not more smooth and rubious. Thy small pipe is as the maiden's organ, shrill and sound, and all is semblative a woman's part. I know thy constellation is right apt for this affair. Some 4 or 5 attend him, all, if you will, for I myself am best when least in company. Prosper well in this, and thou shalt live as freely as thy lord to call his fortunes thine." And Viola says, "I'll do my best to woo your lady." And then in an aside, "Yet a barful strife. Whomever I woo, myself would be his wife." And then later in the play, Olivia asks Cesario, not knowing that Cesario is Viola, how he would declare himself, were he to love her as Orsino claims to love her. So Viola says, if I did love you in my master's flame with such a suffering, such a deadly life, in your denial I would find no sense. I would not understand it. And then Olivia says, why? What would you? And Viola says, make me a willow cabinet your gate, and call upon my soul within the house, write loyal cantons of contemned love, and sing them loud even in the dead of night. Hallow your name to the reverberate hills, and make the babbling gossip of the air cry out, Olivia! Oh, you should not rest between the elements of air and earth, but you should pity me. And then Olivia says, you might do much. What is your parentage, right? She starts wondering, okay, where does this boy come from? Is he well born? She is taken with him beginning right then. And the reason is, so Orsino has been trying to woo her through these kind of formal overtures, right? He has been sending these young lads to declare his love for Olivia. And she's just put off by that, right? I mean, one gets the sense that Olivia thinks, if he loves me like he says he loves me, like, where is he? Why isn't he on my doorstep banging it down? How can love be declared secondhand, right? One gets the sense that this is what Olivia is thinking. And so when she comes to see that Cesario, right, Viola as Cesario, would decamp on her door, right, and build himself a little hut there, and cry out to the skies her name, she is overwhelmed by that. She's intrigued by it. She is, I think, enamored of it, and that, I think, is the beginning of her love, because Viola as Cesario has told her in that moment, like, this is who I am. This is how I would declare myself to someone that I adore. And then later in the play, when Sebastian, Viola's brother, comes into the picture, Olivia mistakes Sebastian for Cesario. And just as earlier Viola had really asserted herself, really made it very clear to Olivia how her love would manifest itself, Olivia is doing much the same thing with Sebastian. She is asserting herself. She is in control here. She says, nay, come, I prithee, would thou be ruled by me? Right? It's not a question. There's an exclamation point at the end of that. Sebastian says, madam, I will. Olivia says, oh, say so, and so be. Right? Ruled by me. She is large and in charge right here. Olivia is showing, she thinks that Sebastian is Cesario, and this is her showing Sebastian what she would do, right, if she was that rapturously in love, because she is, okay? Cesario has earlier told her what he would do. This is Olivia showing him, although it's Sebastian, what she would do. This is how I am, she says. This is how I feel. This is what my heart looks like. And it's a beautiful thing to behold, really. So there's another example of that, right? Sebastian sees it, and Sebastian falls immediately in love. He is impressed with Olivia, and it's because she's impressive. If Orsino had ever showed his face on her doorstep himself, he might have seen that, and he might have, let's say, developed a more complicated view of women and what they were capable of feeling. Earlier in the play, Viola, as Cesario, goes some distance toward educating Orsino about what women are capable of feeling. So she is complicating his view of a woman's heart, I think, and it serves her well in the end, obviously, because the two of them end up together. And then lastly, and this has nothing to do with romance, maybe the most powerful example and the most troubling example of people really seeing someone for who they are in the play is how Sir Toby Belch and Mariah and their cohorts recognize Malvolio as a kind of fawning social climber, and that's what he is, right? Olivia may not see it, but they see that that's what he is. He shows that to them. He doesn't hide it from them in the way that he hides it from his lady, as he might say. However, what's troubling about it is the fact that in seeing him, they look to humiliate him. They look to punish him. And so that's Shakespeare showing us their true colors, right? It's like a Cyndi Lauper song. Sir Toby, Mariah, Sir Andrew, Fabian, I think is his name as well. This fourth minor character are cruel. They are cruel human beings, and that's tough to accept. Partly because we find them really humorous, right? Like all of the funniest shit in this play has to do with the four of them humiliating. Well, I suppose with Feste as well. The five of them humiliating Malvolio. And it goes one step further in that Shakespeare is maybe revealing us to us. He is showing us ourselves in an unflattering light. What does it say about us that we laugh at the humiliation of another? And I've always struggled with that because I do find those scenes funny, right? Where Malvolio is reading the letter and trying to work out how that acronym somehow stands for his name. It's hilarious, but at the same time, it's us laughing at someone being hurt and being manipulated and being taken advantage of, and that's tough. That makes us squirm a little, I think, as readers. I'm not sure that there's anybody who feels good necessarily about laughing at Malvolio in this play. Fun little side note. So I just recently learned that Terrence Malick, right, the great Terrence Malick, Jason's favorite living filmmaker, played Malvolio on stage in college. And I learned this in a book about Terrence Malick that was sent to me, that was bought for me and sent to me by the wonderful Roz, one of my longtime subscribers. And you guys will recognize her name in the comments below my video. So thank you again for that, Roz. Yeah, Terrence Malick played Malvolio. Terrence Malick was yellow-stockinged and cross-gartered, which is a very, very strange image to have in one's head. But anyway, those are my brief thoughts on Twelfth Night. I'm sorry this video is going up so late. Yesterday was a difficult day at work. I had a coworker piss me off so badly I wanted to perform the Cruciatus curse on him. And I actually left work halfway through the day. I was so angry. And then today, I worked for, God, I don't even know, 9 hours? Something like that, here on a Saturday. We had a big event. Our radio station group had a huge event that we've been working on since March, and it came off today. And I got very little sleep this last week because I was having nightmares about it. I was worried that, I don't know, like, nobody was going to show up, which is ludicrous, right? Because we've just been promoting the hell out of it. And I had a dream one night that a mountain lion got loose in the event. But it went off like gangbusters today. It was the first annual of these. And, we had our fingers crossed that it would go well. And if it went well, that we would do it again next year. And that's going to be the case because we had about 2,000 people show up, which was exhausting and fun. And we were all like zombies at the end of it, just kind of managing this gigantic room in the event center and taking care of our client. It was a long, grueling end to a long, grueling week. But thoughts on Twelfth Night are better late than never. So that's that. And I will see you guys again very soon. Adios.